Let me tell you, our AI robot overlords, they are coming for our jobs, and the future is now, and they are here. And I just read this AI generated lyric that somebody posted on a songwriting forum, and I'll tell you, I am shocked, taken aback, because it's indistinguishable. Like, AI is every bit as capable as like a human songwriter of making a bunch of dumb mistakes and bad decisions while writing a song. So let's take a look at what went wrong here. Okay, so just to be clear, I don't own this song. I'm not really. I guess I'll credit it to the person who provided the input that the AI generated an output. And I'm not going to get into AI, like the ethics, the morality, my opinion on what's the future. I don't know. I'm old school. I'm old, and AI feels like cheating to me. I'm not interested in using it as a tool, but I'm trying to keep an open mind about what down the road. I'm sure somebody's going to really, somebody who is inherently talented and a very clever, talented writer on their own is going to use this tool in a way that's genius. But right now, what this does is it gives me an opportunity to critique a bunch of common mistakes that I see human beings, novice songwriters make all the time when it comes to lyric writing. And these are the kind of things I generally don't weigh in on because it feels like bullying, or it feels, like piling on, or raining on someone's parade. But I can't hurt robots' feelings. So I'm going to go ahead and critique this for the benefit of all. Okay, so this was posted by someone named Torker, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly with the umlauts. My apologies if I'm not. And this nominally belongs to them, and I'm not laying claim to it at all, but I do want to use it for educational purposes to talk about the aforementioned mistakes. So, to start with, let me just read the lyric that was generated. So, first verse. In the depth of the night, city lights fading, melodies echoing in my heart, filling my chest like a melody. A lost soul in the streets, dreaming as it gazes at the stars. The sky screams, and I rebel in the rapper's scale. And then there's a pre-chorus. Lost in the concrete forest, engulfed in echoing sounds, I dance with a mysterious melody, soaring in my imagination. Then a chorus. A scream of freedom, drums blowing like the wind, intoxicating my soul. I wander in the... This is a place name that I don't know, perhaps in Turkey, so I'm going to do my best with it, but I apologize if I got it wrong. I wander in the Hikazker scale on dark nights, crafting a soundtrack for my life with enchanting tones. Second verse. Whispering to the stars, creating melodies with my microphone. As my voice echoes, the rebellion in my heart grows. A scream on the asphalt, bouncing off walls. The sky is my stage, the stars are my audience. Then the pre-chorus again. Lost in the concrete forest, engulfed in echoing sounds, I dance with mysterious melody, soaring in my imagination. The chorus, a scream of freedom, drums blowing like the wind, intoxicating my soul. I wander in the Hikazker scale on dark nights, crafting a soundtrack for my life with enchanting tones. Then a bridge. The fire of the solo player ignites, intensifying my rebellion. Lost in dark corridors, the light of music guides my way. Then we go, after the bridge, we go back to the chorus. A scream of freedom, drums blowing like the wind, intoxicating my soul. I wander in the Hikazker scale on dark nights, crafting a soundtrack for my life with enchanting tones. And then an outro, a little coda to wrap it up. Notes quietly fade as the city falls asleep. My soul embarks on an infinite journey with the melodies of rebellion. Okay. So the text actually goes on from there, and I think it's either like an alternate version of the output, because in my book, when you say outro, you're done. You're finishing up rather than starting over. So it's probably a variation. It's either human polish, like human being kind of rewrote pieces, or it's an alternate version of the output. I don't know. I'm going to treat this as good enough to talk about some things. So this is something where I didn't know it was an AI generated at first, and I was scrolling past it, and at first glance, I knew I'm not interested in getting into this one. This is going to be troublesome, and this is going to be problematic, and for reasons I've mentioned in other videos before, I don't delve into, you know, trying to figure out lyrics for that are by novices, when they're not asking for feedback, especially. But then I saw the comment from the original poster that this was in fact AI generated, and that interested me. So, but I digress. And the thing that caught my eye, sort of problem number one, or kind of questionable decision number one, is the kind of needless over repetition of keywords that have been infused with some power, keywords that sort of standout words. So the first one that caught my eye was melody. So in this song, not counting reprises of the pre-chorus, melody is stated 5 times, and there are a bunch of other words that are also stated a lot. They probably stood out to you. Words like scream, rebel or rebellion, scale, lost, heart. So I want to hold on to heart for a moment, but so you can there are lots of reasons that this isn't really a rule, but like a guiding principle. A guiding principle for me is when I state an interesting word, a powerful word, a sort of key word that has special imagery or special meaning, I want to start by thinking I'm going to say it one time in the song, and then if I'm going to say it subsequent times, it needs to feel organic, or it needs to feel appropriate. Like that's the right word. The reason I'm going to say it is because that's the right word. Here's a case where heart is a word that often gets repeated, is an important word in many songs, often gets repeated, and feels natural, feels organic, it feels appropriate, because the reason, as you can probably guess, that heart often gets through the gate is that we're talking about love, and really love is what we're talking about, and the heart is the seat of love, and in poetry of yore. So as we all know, we talk about that, and we talk about that effortlessly, and so we hear it, and it's effortless, and it doesn't stand out as awkward. That said, it would be awkward if you used heart the way that it's almost used, and that melody is used in the first stanza, which is what caught my eye. I'm like, nope. If this choice got made, I'm not going to be happy with other choices. Specifically, this line: melodies echoing in my heart, filling my chest like a melody. The structure of that is they're so close together, which is not how people tend to speak, not how people tend to express an idea, and it's a weird idea to express in this weird way, which is melodies doing stuff like a melody. That's kind of meaningless, obviously, and furthermore, there's kind of this double mirror in there that includes heart. They almost use heart twice. Melodies echoing in my heart, filling my chest, where my heart lives. I mean, we're not talking about pneumonia, right? Not talking about the lungs. Talking about the heart, filling my chest like a melody. So it's kind of like melody, heart, bing, bouncing off the wall. That is super awkward, and I know that it's tempting to go, oh, robot, but in truth, I've seen human beings make similar choices, and so I'd like to just point out, like, that is, who am I to tell you what's a bad choice? But if you're a novice, as I've said in other videos aimed at novices, it might behoove you to try to adopt convention as a first step, and then tell yourself confidently why you're going to break with it, rather than just, I'm unconventional and I don't know what I'm doing, and therefore I'm unconventional. Some people do that and they are brilliant, but most people who do that just flail about and don't have much to say, and don't know how to say it. Anyway, so all of this abundance of specific words is, I would say, generally something to avoid. You need to kind of make the case to yourself that it belongs, and then you're fine, as long as you feel that you've made a very deliberate choice to say a word a lot, that you have this good reason for you, then go for it. But if you're just like melody, if you find yourself like reaching for the same word, you need to pause and think about why you're going to do that, and the consequence, which is you're going to draw a lot of attention to this word. It's going to start to stick out, and is there a good reason that it should stick out like that? Okay, so I could go on about that. I already have. Moving on, inconsistent structure. So this is something I've also talked about in recent videos about lyricists, or about people who only write lyrics, sort of a difference between poetry and lyrics, and something that's kind of a shibboleth that separates people who know how to write lyrics for songs, who understand a fundamental truth about lyrics, versus people who may have great poetic ideas, but their lyrics don't read into a melody very well. And that has to do with the consistency of structure. Now, I've talked about, like, and this, so I'm talking about the structure here of the consistency of, like, stresses and rhyme scheme and lengths of lines, how things line up. But just to revisit, one thing that this robot got right is it's using a very traditional song structure. It's using a variation on the rock and roll AABA. In other words, we have kind of a verse-chorus pairing. So here we've got a verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, a B, or middle eight, some people call, and then an A prime, just going back to the chorus, and then a little coda. That's a common structure. Within that structure, there are some expectations of what it is to be a verse, a pre-chorus, and a chorus, and a bridge, which I've talked about in my Songwriting 101. I've pointed to the corner more times than I can give you links, but check out some of my other videos if you like long-winded explanations. Have I got some videos for you? So a verse, the expectation I have of a verse is that it is, as I say in that video, it's same melody, same chords, new words, new idea, new lyric. So in the town where I was born, in Yellow Submarine, it's in the town where I was born, and then later we go to, and our friends are all aboard, and as we live beneath the waves. These are different verses. Like, they fit to the same tune, but they're new ideas, and they move forward in their own way. So the litmus test here for me is, well, does the first verse sound like the second verse? Like, do they fit in different ways? And ideally what I want to hear is that when I say the one then the other, it sounds like if I just, kind of Charlie Brown, wah, 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 if I did that they'd sound the same. And that going one level further, I'd like to hear some rhyme scheme emerge that further strengthens their similarity, which we'll get into momentarily, or maybe we'll get into right now. This song has no rhyme scheme, but let's talk about let's test. Let's put the verse to the test, knowing that the rhyme scheme's out the window, but let's put the structure to the test. So first verse goes, "In the depth of the night, city lights fading." That's how it opens. Second verse opens, "Whispering to the stars, creating melodies with my microphone." That's me doing my best to shoehorn it into the most similar pair of stresses. So in the depth of the night, city lights fading. Depth, city. And then, okay, if I had to do 2 stresses on the second one, it's going to start with it. So whispering to the stars, creating melodies with my microphone is as close as I can get it. So it's not consistent. And if I were trying to sing this or put this to music, I'd be having to do some shoehorning. Is it that line? If it were just that line, I'd be like, okay, that's a little awkward and I have to do a little tap dance. But I can make that work. And this is where sometimes people who are lyricists in collaboration, I talked about this in another video as well, that giving some concession or doing a polish for musicality, sometimes lyricists get a little prickly about the reality that we're going to need to, it would behoove us to change some of the carefully chosen robot words to make them fit the pattern of a melody that we have, so that we have that Yellow Submarine kind of consistency. So that I don't go, in the depth of the night, city lights fading, like that. We want to have it all fit together. So let's just test the next thing. Melodies echoing in my heart, filling my chest like a melody. As my voice echoes, the rebellion in my heart grows. These are not, they're roughly the same length, like they fit in the same breath, but they're not structurally consistent. They don't line up. It just deviates. They are independent from each other. There's not much tying them together other than they are just labeled verse. Okay, so that's an issue. Talked about rhyme scheme, and I'll, I guess, sort of finish the point here, which is that, not to be controversial in everything I say, and I've said this before, you can do whatever you want if you want to. There are no rules. You can find a successful example of a successful song that bucks any trend you care to name, including rhyming. There is no hard and fast rule. But if you're a novice and you're trying to learn the ropes, hold on to the ropes a little bit. It's my advice. And one of the things you need to be aware of if you're going to buck this trend is that in English, in English lyrics, in rock and roll history, rhyming matters. That we expect to hear some rhyming. We expect to hear couplets. English speakers love rhyming. That's part of our poetry is rhyming. We love how things fit together. We love that puzzle. Now, there's a flip side to that coin, which is a lot of novice songwriters focus too much on rhyming. They're too worried about fitting that puzzle, and they're not saying enough. So, on the other side of the scale, a lot of times I would say to a novice songwriter, rhyme less, say more. But you should have some rhyming. And what I do expect to see is that there's maybe 2 strong couplets. For this verse, this is a 4-line verse, so I expect to see 2 strong couplets where they rhyme with each other. The cherry on top would be that the second verse continues the same phenome, the same sound. That we're doing ooh, ooh, wah 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 ooh, wah 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 ooh, and then verse 2 is wah 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 ooh, wah 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 ooh. That would be strong, as you can clearly hear. That would be a strong approach, but it would be okay to go wah 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 ooh for the first verse and then change wah 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 e wah 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 e. That's fine. A more subtle one, but a little harder to pull off. Well, there's lots of things you can do. I don't need to name every rhyme scheme. This robot can't even rhyme. So, certainly in the chorus, we'd like to hear a little rhyme, if possible. Not everyone does it. Yellow Submarine. perfect example. There really isn't a rhyming chorus, but it's got its own, you know, they're geniuses, and they know when it's working, and they know when it's okay. You know, we all live in a yellow submarine, yellow submarine, yellow submarine, and we're just gonna say that. That doesn't really have a rhyme, but there has a lot of nice repetition to it, and the melody's doing a lot of the lifting. It's fine. The Beatles can do whatever they want. Um, so, questionable decision number 4 has to do with kind of unfocused imagery and metaphor, things that you're like, well, what are you getting at? So the one that's in the most important position, that's doing the most damage for me, is in the chorus, drums blowing like the wind. Now, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that people have said my drums blow at times, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we have is, yeah, that was dumb. That was dumb. We're gonna edit that out. We can't. We do these in one long continuous take, and we do the best we can, and it gets so long. But this is important. So that is ridiculous. Drums don't blow. Drums don't blow. Drums don't blow like the wind, and then drums blowing like the wind, intoxicating my soul. The whole thing just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's really important. Like, the words you choose for your chorus need to have some weight, even if you have kind of a silly idea, like Yellow Submarine. But more often, you've got an idea that's important to you. It needs to kind of get to the point. It needs to like express and distill the idea. This is not a place for a weird image that doesn't have any grounding in reality. And this is where, the robot went wrong. But people, honestly, it's still the case. Like, I have seen countless awkward metaphors, images that don't work. A lot of times this happens when someone's trying to force a rhyme. When human beings try to force a rhyme, they wind up with something that doesn't make sense. You got to make sense. You got to try to make sense. It is fine to use imagery. It's fine to just paint a picture. That is a strong and valid tool to just, and it's powerful to bring somebody into your mindscape and have them imagine what you are imagining. But that's not what's happening here. This is working against that. Drums blowing like the wind, intoxicating my soul. And a lot of this song as a whole, the robot seems to be adopting a strategy of kind of image weaving, that talking about like a place in time, and it does sort of paint a picture of, when I'm picturing the song, I'm picturing night, I'm picturing sound, sort of ambient sounds around me. I'm picturing like the sounds of the streets and the sounds at night. And those things are leaking through, but they are also getting damaged and distracted by these weird images, these weird metaphors, these weird similes, these weird analogies that don't add up and don't mean anything. So that is something to watch out for in your own writing if you are a novice. When you're going to make a comparison, make it make sense. At the very least to you. You need to think, this is what I want to say. This is how I want to compare it. It enriches my idea. And then kind of the final thing, which I've started talking about, which is a chorus that doesn't feel like a chorus. Like I said before, your chorus really should distill the central conceit of your song, and make a memorable statement of it. It should be a poignant counterpoint to the verse, and you're sort of exploring the idea and advancing the idea in the verse, and in the chorus you're kind of saying, and here's the point, and here's the thing. And then you go back. What's a pre-chorus? A pre-chorus can serve a bunch of different roles, but really what it is kind of like, I think of it as, it's chorus junior. It's a second refrain. It's another catchy part that kind of gets us, somehow feels right, feels organic, to get us ready for the chorus, to like say, here it comes, in essence. To like, maybe, if the verse is building some kind of tension, and the pre-chorus in some ways making sort of the musical tension come to a head, and then the chorus is giving a little bit of a release to that. That's a way. Pre-chorus, basically, there is no strict use of that. It's just that you have another idea that sounds right, feels right, and that's a typical reason that it would sound right and feel right, is that it's lifting us, getting us ready, holding us at bay and increasing the tension. But basically, they're just like cool. I have another cool idea that fits really well, and I want to have a second refrain that can be really strong. That's I can't remember his, Mutt Lange, like the producer from the 80s and 90s, like Def Leppard producer. He's sort of famous for pushing bands to make their chorus be a pre-chorus and come up with a better thing for the chorus, which I think that's some sage advice that has stuck with me as something to consider when you're writing. Is this my best chorus, or is this my pre-chorus? All right. Anyway, that's very long. Sorry. I know if you made it all the way to the end, I love you so much for being my friend and listening to what I have to say. But I'm done. I'll let you off the hook now, and go out there and write and do better than the robots. Like, we can beat them back. We have the power. They can't do anything we can't do. Writers, get out there and write these robots back to Robot Town. Let's go. Come on, let's go.